These are the real numbers behind it.
One more time? How much?
And it's not something you should be embarrassed about.
I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day.
Welcome to Tailored Wealth. I'm your host, Taylor Mavrakos. In my 10 years as a financial advisor, I've noticed that when it comes to finances, women are considered an afterthought. My intention with this podcast is to create a space tailored to financial education for women as we navigate choices throughout our lives. And this is our first episode.
Yeah, very exciting.
So I thought, who better to have on for the first episode about women than a man? I'm just kidding.
I'm honored. Wow.
Here we are. No, I wanted to kick off the podcast with Keon Buzar. Keon, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Keon Buzar. I do a bunch of stuff, but primarily I do a lot of video production. So I was really excited when Taylor approached me with the idea for this podcast. And so now we get to do it.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, so I kid that you are our first guest, but really you are the brains behind the operation and you are the producer.
Technical side.
On the
I think you have literally all the content and all the connections and everything. Yeah. So it works together well. But I think if anybody should probably learn more about women, it would be me, I think.
That's fair. That's fair. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of go into how we know each other.
Sure.
And I guess we're just going to break the fourth wall in the first episode here and talk about how the sausage gets made.
Yeah, this isn't the first episode we've recorded.
No, it's not. Okay, so we should talk about that too.
Sure.
We had recorded an intro episode before we started having guests on, as one might do. That's the normal flow of things. And then we had our first guest on, and I was just sitting there and I was looking. So Keon typically sits kind of like right in my line of sight. And I was listening to the guests and it was like I saw who we're actually talking to, like standing next to you. Like I was like, I know her. I know who we're talking to. Yeah, it was a guest that was trying to say something that was like a little technical. Okay. And I found myself almost envisioning the person that I want to listen to this podcast. And that's when I said to him, like, can you clarify the things that you're saying? And it was almost like it just clicked for me. And I was like, I know what we're doing here. But I really unapologetically want to talk about women's financial education, financial literacy. And we'll get into how it is different and how you do have to tailor it to women. And there are a couple different reasons for that. But our intro episode, if you will, was a little more general about like why investing is important and all these different things, which is true. But I really wanted to redo it to the point where we're talking to women. We're talking about women. And we want to make sure that we're constantly making that effort. I want to make sure we're making that effort with the show, that there's content that's for people like me, people like the friends that I have, and like the women in your life.
Definitely. There's so much that when it comes to financial knowledge in general, we don't learn in school. And I'm kind of like a freak when it comes to like really interested about finance just within the past couple of years. Yeah. And there's so much that I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize any of this. We didn't learn this in high school, college, anything. And the more you see, there's more content online teaching you more and more stuff, which is great. But a lot of it, like you've mentioned to me before, is just not tailored to women. It's not particularly about how much they have to go through. It's just like, well, here's general stuff about money. But people don't consider the differences in what men and women deal with, both financially and like a lot of other things when it comes to money.
And I think what's important about what you just said, and something I want to highlight, is while we're talking about how finance relates to women, men and women can and should listen to what we're talking about.
Sure. I listen to it.
Yeah, there you go. More times than I do because you edit it. So you just hear me say it like 50 times. Pretty much. I come in for an hour. I'm like, thanks so much. And you're like, yeah, I'll see you 10 hours from now.
Behind a computer, just like, yeah, no, totally. Yes. This is great.
Yes. But I think it's worth mentioning that, you know, every man that I've ever met knows at least one woman. Wouldn't you
fair,
say?
Yeah,
I don't have a statistic on that. I know you like me to cite my sources, but I just feel like that's true.
That's like that statistic I read recently. That's like, if your parents didn't have children, you're less likely to have children.
Exactly. Yes.
Like,
see, you get it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I think, and the other thing too is, you know, when you're talking about raising daughters or raising women that are growing up in the world, just making sure that we have men that are advocates as well. So a little bit about me. I grew up with a stay-at-home mom. I was very blessed that my mom, when we were growing up, was there to do homework, to do flashcards. And we were just those kids that were constantly being stimulated to learn, right?
That's awesome.
And it was great. Yeah. So shout out to my mom, Suzanne, very blessed. But my dad was working as a financial advisor, full disclosure, until I got out of college. If somebody said, "What does your dad do?" I would have been like, well, for career day in elementary school, he would bring in gold chocolate coins and he would say, "I make 1 coin into 2 coins."
That's pretty good.
And that was what he
great.
did. And he did every year, and he was a hit because he brought in candy. So probably not college, but after high school, that's what I knew that he did.
College is when you need that candy, though. That's
College is when you need
the
it.
energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Do you have any more?" He's like, "No." But anyway, so my dad was working as a financial advisor. But I think that male encouragement really means something, especially to young girls. Just to be like, there are all sorts of, not only just general knowledge that people know, but studies where they say that women are not as encouraged to pursue kind of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, all the quantitative number stuff. Women aren't supposed to be good at that or good at math. And that's just not true, right? So having male advocates is really important. So shout out to my dad, Chris, as well. Because with
great.
that nice little 1-2 combo, here I am. So it worked out. But you and I met in high school.
Yeah, it's incredible. We met in a magnet program, the IB program.
We're very smart.
And we're geniuses, basically.
So smart.
Yeah, that's why we have a cool podcast.
Don't worry. Everything we say, very intelligent.
Yeah. And it's so funny because at the time I was just like, Taylor's so cool and smart and awesome. And then recently we had I saw your sister in Tampa and was like, "Oh my God, how are you doing?" And she's like, "Hey, you do photography and stuff like that, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she's like, "Well, we could use some headshots." And then when I came in to do headshots, you were like, "Hey, by the way, I was thinking about doing a podcast." So that was where we kind of connected and started doing a lot of this kind of stuff. And it's so funny to me how much, as soon as we started, we just slipped back into that, like, "How are you doing? How's everything going?" And like our brains just melded into like, yeah, no, this is just how we could do everything.
We fell right back into it. I know, because my sister said, and I'm going to add a couple of fun details to the story.
Okay.
Because my sister was like, "You'll never guess who I saw at Chili's." And I was like, "Who?" And then she said, "You." And I said, "Oh," and I did the same thing. I'm like, "I love Keon. I haven't seen him in 10 years. So then when we linked back up, you were doing headshots, and my whole office is very pink. I like the color pink, if that's not abundantly clear already. Sure. So poor Keon's like doing our headshots, and I'm like, I'm thinking about a podcast, and I bring him and I'm like, "Come in my office." So I bring him in the office. He sits in my like pink velvet, like barrel chairs. I like shut the door and I start telling him about everything.
Where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? Huh? Yeah.
Right. They are comfy chairs though, aren't they?
They're great. Seriously.
Yeah, they're super
it's
nice.
A beautiful office.
My mom calls it the nail salon, but I love it. So I don't care what she says about it. There you go. But yeah, so we started talking, and then it really just fell into place pretty quickly, I think.
And I gotta say, when it comes to the types of podcasts that I've done in the past, a lot of them are like, people talking about just whatever interests them, and they can be really captivating just by not only their personalities, but just like the way they speak and stuff like that. But this, from the episodes that we've recorded, it's not only like really good conversations, but also just the breadth of people that you know, and that like really you all respect each other and are all working professionals, both in finance and a bunch of other fields. It's so interesting hearing you guys talk about stuff and go over so many different topics that, like, me just sitting while you guys are recording, I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so good." I'm just taking notes of like, write that down, keep this in mind. And I'm really excited for people to see them outside of, this episode, just because the different types of topics, when you think that finance, I've subscribed to so many financial YouTubers and stuff like that.
Thank goodness, because you do all the research.
Exactly. And a lot of them, not in a bad way, will repeat a lot of stuff just to try to drill it into your head, which I think is great to do because you want to come out of the experience with more knowledge that you will use later. But a lot of the stuff, like each episode, I feel like can be watched more than one time, and you'll get something new of like, "Oh, here's something I missed," just because it's so like full of information. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited for people to see the episodes.
Me too. I'm excited about that. And I think that something I bring up over and over again when we have the guests on is really good financial advisors, but also just really good professionals in any of those fields. Like you have to have a team, right? So it's holistic financial planning. I think we're more used to that in terms of like real estate, where people know you need a realtor, you need a mortgage expert, you need insurance, right? And you can kind of build out that team.
I totally know that. Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad you said that. I totally know all the people I need for the mortgage.
Well, you do now because they've been on the show.
Exactly.
Yeah,
no, but I agree that, there's a certain stuff where you know the process,
Hmm.
but then when you realize how many other people can help you in so many other ways, man, this seriously, a lot of the guests that you brought on, I'm like, I wish I knew about this kind of profession or this kind of knowledge base before.
It's super cool, right? And I think the other thing is like finance is tricky because mutual funds are abstract and like
Hmm.
stocks
Yeah.
and they're kind of like nebulous to most people. They're like, I
Hmm.
don't know what this is. I'm a little afraid of it. I
Sure.
could lose all my money. Versus like something like real estate, you can see it. You can
Hmm.
see the house,
Yeah.
right?
You should be able to touch it
You
if you think
should
about
be.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no crypto real estate.
Oh God,
We're
no,
not
no,
doing
thanks.
that.
No, that we will not do an
We're not going
episode
to
on
go into
that.
why. It's just a hard no.
Hmm.
But
And then wait
anyway,
till episode 500, and we're like, so crypto real estate,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. But it's one of those things where you want to have a good team that gets built out. And what I was really excited about was the idea that when we are talking to these people, what we're really doing, my hope is always access. So I always think about that in terms of my job because I want to make sure that we're giving as many people access to this information as possible. To your point, we don't learn about it in school.
Hmm.
All four of my grandparents immigrated over from Europe.
Oh
So
yeah.
they were like
Hmm.
the success story where like they learned English at night in the library. Like
Oh, that's
they're those
awesome.
people. They're
Hmm.
incredible. Yeah. And I just always, people ask all the time, do we have account minimums in our office? And we will never have account minimums in the office because I believe everybody should have access to investing, have access to knowledge about investing. And I'm excited about these different shows that we're doing
Hmm.
because a lot of times, like for example, real estate, when we had the expert on, it's like I can send that episode to a client where
Yeah.
they can really do a deep dive. And not only that, but they can meet the members of the team that they're going to have, right?
Hmm.
As we kind of walk through that journey together.
Yeah, and I would liken it to like if you go into a doctor's office and you go to like your general practitioner and you're like, my throat hurts, and they're just like, okay, you need to go see a different doctor, and be like, what? There are other doctors I need to see, and you don't realize how specialized when you have a problem. You're like, oh, now I need to see a like hand doctor or any of the other branches that they need to recommend. And it's similar with finance and with real estate and with lawyers and all of these different things. Is there isn't just one person that's going to solve all your problems. You need to have a network that you can all build together. And especially, like you said, these episodes, I think, will help people not only know where to go,
Hmm.
but also help speak to those types of people a little bit more educatedly, I guess, in a way that they can have a productive conversation instead of walking to the office and be like, okay, we need to do like a therapy session to diagnose all the stuff that I have going on because I don't really know where to start, which is pretty empathizable. A lot of people just start with an issue and are like, I don't know where to go.
Right.
So,
And
mhm,
I think to build on that, with these episodes, I don't expect people to become experts in all of these things. So, to
sure.
your point earlier, yes, you could listen to the episodes 2 or 3 times and learn something new every time.
Hmm.
My goal for everybody is just get the buzzwords. So that way, when you
Sure.
meet with the experts, like if you live locally by us, great, then you can access the people that we're talking to.
Sure.
And if you don't, which a lot of people won't be, at least you have the tools to interview experts when you're talking to them and
Hmm.
really know and advocate for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Just to make sure that you know that you're covering all your bases, that you're picking the right professionals. And that's something that kept popping up over and over again, too, is that I feel like for women, especially single women, there is a little bit always of having your guard up when you're negotiating or you're picking different experts to work with. You want to make sure that you're getting fair pricing, that you're getting the
Sure.
right deal for what you're doing. And so that's why I was really passionate about having a podcast where we directly address that because I feel like a lot of times things that are tailored to women are a little bit more frills. They're a little bit more like fancy language. And
Hmm.
it's like, well, just be assertive, like be confident. Or do you have statistics to back all these things up? They're like, we're not being treated fairly. And it's
Hmm.
like, no, it's not just you saying that. There are statistics we can talk about
Yeah.
where they translate to real money that women are spending, that women are overspending when they don't need to. And also that women are missing out on because they're not investing at the rate that men are. And
Hmm.
we'll kind of go into some of those statistics in a minute. But it's something that I really wanted to make sure that we had a space where we were validating a lot of those kind of frilly statements that people make and saying, no, like these are the real numbers behind it.
Yeah.
These are the real things you should be asking the people that you work with, right? And having it translate into real money that you're saving over the long term.
Yeah. You're not crazy.
You're not
There's stuff
crazy.
behind this.
and some statistics to start.
Ooh,
We're going to do it. We're going to get
exciting.
into some statistics. Yeah.
You know, I love me some numbers.
There you go. Me too. Me too. When we say single women, people think women who are young, right? And that's not always the case, because now we have more and more women transitioning from being married back to being single through divorce, being widowed. And then not only that, but even when you are in a partnership, still thinking of yourself as your own entity and making sure you always have some protections in place. Definitely. We've had really good conversations with family law attorneys, just making sure that if you make a choice, a family choice to maybe stay at home and raise your kids or something like that, I tell all my clients, there's no wrong choice except the uneducated choice.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you walk into something with your eyes wide open and you know the choice that you're making, then you can't make the wrong choice. Mm-hmm. You know, so the best choice is the educated choice, always. But talking about the women that we're speaking of, 43% of women worry about money every single day.
Jeez.
Yeah. Wow. And 59% worry about it at least once a week.
Oh, that sounds stressful. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And then 58% of women say investing intimidates them, which, full disclosure, it intimidated me, and my dad was a financial advisor. And until I figured out the whole chocolate coin thing, I was pretty much in the dark. So you're not alone. Even I thought that for a long time. And then a big one I want to talk about is 48% of women feel embarrassed that they don't know about investing. Mm-hmm. And it's not something you should be embarrassed about, because we don't even learn about it in school.
Yeah.
Why don't we learn about it in school? That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah,
we're not going to go down right now.
Legislation about that.
Yeah, sure. Figure that out. They actually did in Florida. Now they're going to offer a financial literacy course.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
I know. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get that, because we could have used that.
Sure. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think everybody deserves that kind of course, as well as like home ec. It's funny how much people like poo-poo home economics classes as just like, oh, well, that's for if you're not going to go learn this or that. But like, there's so much that they, just don't teach you that. And every day you're just like, how do I fix a hole in my shirt or something? That just might be me. But then on top of that, like investment, I mean, like money is so all encompassing for us that, having that as an option at the very least is so important.
And I think, when we're talking about numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Real data behind the things that we're saying, there is something called a pink tax. Do you know what that is?
I assume it's a tax on pink things. Is that?
Very close.
Okay.
Yeah. The idea is that there's extra charges that get put on products that are marketed directly to women.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah. Jeez. So they took a look at, 800 products and found that women's products cost more 42% of the time.
Wow, this sounds like Family Feud. It's like, we surveyed 100 people and we found...
Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
A nerdy finance game?
Yeah, let's do it.
What do we call it? Guess the pink tax.
Okay. Guess the pink tax. Sure.
All right, Keon, you're on the spot.
Oh, so I'm going to be guessing the statistics.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
How much more do you think that razors marketed to women cost? Percentage-wise.
For like a razor for like hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like what, like 2%, 3%, something like that.
11% more.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and also I think our razors are smaller.
Probably. That's an interesting thing is, usually like serving sizes and stuff, when they like gender them, are usually like a percentage bigger and smaller, but they usually cost the same and stuff like that. It's
exactly.
Crazy.
It's just little stuff. And again, the thing that I'm so passionate about is it translates to money. So it's always like, this is a term I've been thinking of, like soft skills, right? Like soft facts. Like, well, it's because women are smaller. It's like, then make the bill smaller.
Sure,
because you're, from a business perspective, it's costing you less money to put this food on my plate. Yeah. Why am I paying the same amount? Right? It's a higher profit margin. Yeah. I digress. Let's keep playing.
Sure.
All right. This is a good one. Shampoos and conditioners.
Like the difference between men and women's percentage. I assume that men have like all in one, this and that. You only buy one bottle.
Suave.
So yes, exactly. Just stack it with motor oil and you put that in your hair and you're fine. I'd say probably like 10%, something like that.
48%.
Oh my God.
It is quite a lot more.
Sorry. One more time? How much?
48%.
Wow. Gosh.
And so somebody might argue like, well, that's because women's products are higher quality, which, number one, that's not good for men. Now here I am advocating for men to have better shampoos and conditioners.
Look what happens if you have bad hair conditioner. But legitimately, like, there is an air of that, of like women's hair care products are so much more like they get more attention, I guess, than men's. Like I said, it's like all in one hair care, and you can brush your teeth with it, and you can fix your car with it, and it's like one bottle. But I mean,
It's like a pocket knife of sanitation for men.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's right there.
But over 40%, that's crazy.
Yeah. So then if you say that, right? If you say, well, it's because women's products are like more ingredients and they're higher quality or whatever. Let's talk about toys. Toys for girls. What percentage more do they cost, if any? Because it might be a trick question, than boys' toys.
See, now I feel like this is some sort of trick. I feel like it's going to be like a percentage, but a lower percentage, just because, yeah, like you said.
I hope they're not 48% as expensive.
Yeah.
That would be bad.
But also with toys, I mean, like, it's the same plastic, presumably. So I guess maybe the pink pigment costs a couple percent more. So let's say like 4 or 5, maybe?
You're close. 7.
Okay, still.
7% more.
Still, that's silly, though.
I don't think pink
I mean,
pigmentation costs more.
no, not at all. We're not in the like 1400s where they're making it from like goat hoof or whatever. So I agree. Yeah.
They have to mix it more. They're like, have to make the red go with the white, make
We
it
don't have
a
the
lighter shade.
Yeah, we don't have the serfs in the fields like grinding it or whatever.
We do not have the
So,
serfs in the fields. That's correct.
But still, I mean, like, that's frustrating that for a piece of plastic that's just a different color, you know.
It's crazy.
The Polly Pocket versus was it Mad Max? Max something? Rex Max? Something.
I know Polly Pockets, Keon. I'm the girl part of it.
Exactly.
I don't know what the
I'm
other
the guy.
thing
I should know the other one.
And that's why you get to be on the girl podcast, because you know that.
Exactly. That was my entry exam. It's just like, do you know what Polly Pocket is? I'm like, of course. I don't know the other one. Yeah.
That was the password to get in here. Crushed it. But yeah, so really, point being that on all sorts of different points in a woman's life, there's a price difference that we should acknowledge. And if things are more expensive, you would think that we would be saving more money to cover all of these expenses, wouldn't you?
Maybe.
Yeah, we're not.
Oh,
yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
No. So part of what we're going to be talking about is women typically will be the spouse that ends up quitting their job in the case to raise kids on the majority of the time. Women are more likely to take part-time jobs than men are for the sake of doing things that they're not compensated for, right? Like raising a family, raising kids. Not that those things aren't important, but something we talk a lot about on these episodes is understanding the money choice that you're making when you make family choices. And understanding that money can be a way to really feel your own sense of independence, your own sense of financial freedom. And if you're going to give that up for the sake of something, a higher noble purpose like raising a family or something like that, making sure that you have some kind of protections in place, because you are giving up some of your key earning years when you make a choice like that, right? And also, even outside of raising kids, there are statistics where women get paid 82 cents on the dollar as of now for the same work that a man does, right? And before everybody in the comments picks that apart and says, well, that statistic doesn't factor in this, this, and this, let's just go with it for this conversation that a lot of times women get paid less for the same work. And you want to make sure that when you're looking at jobs, you're really advocating and negotiating your salary, because a lot of the problem is if you don't negotiate right from the jump, when you go to get the same percentage of a raise, you're getting it on a smaller amount of money.
Oof. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I never thought about it, but yeah, now having been in a corporate environment, your starting salary is where the rest of your salary is based off of. So yeah, you're right. If you start with something smaller and they're like, well, we'll give you a 10% bump for somebody else that's making that their base salary was more, and then they're getting a 10% bump, they're able to grow way more quickly. Yeah.
You know what I didn't think of until I was researching this a little bit more too?
What?
Is when you start at that lower number, a lot of times employers will do a retirement contribution that's a percentage of your income.
Oh, man. Oh,
right?
It's bad all the way down. Oh, that's bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you've got the same percentage on less money, so you have less retirement savings.
Oof, man, this hurts. Dang.
Yeah, it's not great. Which actually they show that men who are between ages 55 and 75 have an average of $157,000 saved for retirement.
Okay.
So they're at 157. Guess what women are at?
In the 140s, 130s, something like that?
50,000.
Just 50,000.
Yep. So quite a bit less.
This hurts. This hurts. Dang, wow, that's crazy.
And what's wild is that women actually live longer than men. So women live in the US about 5 years longer than men. Worldwide, they live about 7 years longer.
So what you're telling me is that women live longer, they make less, and they have to pay more for a lot of the same stuff that men have to pay for. I'm getting heated right now. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day. Yeah.
So how do we fix it?
I'm asking you. I'm freaking out. Please tell me how.
Well, when we're taking a look at this, something that I tell clients all the time is your money is not your pet.
Okay.
So I have a dog. Her name is Roxy. Love her to death. Sure. I come home from a long day of working and Rox has not worked the entire day.
How dare she?
She's just sitting there. Actually, she costs me money, right? And a lot of times people do that with their money where it's sitting in the bank and they're out working and their money isn't doing anything. So you need to start making your money work harder than you're working, because at the end of the day, the goal of retirement really is that your money's the only one working. So you can go do fun stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things where when we talk about your money making interest, kind of similar to the job example we were talking about. If the man has 157,000 that's making interest and the woman has 50,000 that's making interest, if the interest is 4% on each of those two accounts, you've got the same percentage, but it's on a lot less money.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, I'm going to make you a little bit more sad for a second.
Oh, no. God.
When it comes to poverty in retirement, women are 80% more likely than men to be impoverished at age 65 and older.
80%?
80%.
Jeez,
Yep.
and they live longer, like you said.
And they live longer.
Wow.
Even when people are older,
Sure.
just making sure that we're making choices now that can set people up, because retirement and getting older can be really expensive.
Yeah. And I don't want to jump the gun on some topics that we'll talk about later. But when you think of every single financial show you'll ever hear, of course, they bring up that Albert Einstein quote that one of the most powerful things in the universe is compound interest. And that's the interesting thing about compound interest, is that it can work for you, but you need to not only be building it up, but start from a younger age. That can make such an enormous change for your future. And at the same time, if you're a little bit older, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's like the idea that the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. Second best time is now. So yeah, when it comes to saving for your future, even if you think that like, oh man, I could have been saving this whole time, it's like if you start now, you're going to feel way better than if you started in 5 years.
Yeah. Today's better than tomorrow to start.
Sure.
Yeah, 100%. There is a little bit of silver lining here.
Please.
So
Please tell me.
Turns out when women do invest, they actually outperform men.
Hey, well,
So
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Nice.
So when women invest, typically they earn 0.4% higher than men do, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for context, if you invested $1 million for 25 years and you had 0.4% better performance, you'd have an additional $530,000 approximately.
Hey, there we go. That's better than 50,000.
It's better, yeah. So taking a look at why that is, women typically trade a little bit less often.
Okay.
So they do more buy and hold strategies, which actually ends up helping you make more money over a longer period of time.
So you're saying I should just buy and hold. I'll keep that in mind.
I cannot give you official investment advice until I look at but this is not
advice.
investment advice.
Yeah, there we go.
This is an article that I'm quoting to you, but it is something
you heard me sweating about my portfolio right before we started recording. So.
A little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things where women are good investors.
That's great.
So I want to dispel the myth that we don't understand money, because we can understand money. It's a matter of podcasts like this and other people that are working to lift women up, to help women in finance, and really trying to get more women more comfortable with investing.
And this is completely anecdotal, but I've talked to a couple people that have been investing, like they're in their like 70s and 80s, and they're talking, and they do like big financial accounting and stuff like that. And all of them have been like, the women that I've had that are either managing an account or like my investing partners have always been way better. Like they've been way more into the details and just more than men apparently just are naturally, which is really interesting.
Actually, female hedge fund managers typically outperform male hedge fund managers.
I would like a list of all the female-run hedge funds, please.
Well, great news. You're going to Google that and post. No, I'm just kidding.
Editing, Keon, have fun with that.
You're making more work for yourself, but that is fine if you want it. What Keon wants, Keon gets on this podcast. But yes, if women have the natural tools to be good at this, then just getting access to that information, getting access to the experts that we're going to be talking with, and just empowering women in all different stages of their life. And the other thing is, like, your life changes. So you could listen to one of our episodes when you're single. You could listen to it when you're looking to get married. What does it look like? You could listen to it, God forbid, if you get a divorce or your spouse passes away. What does that look like? So I really want them to be, and you use this word a lot, like capsules.
Yes, like
right?
a little time
Will you
capsule.
go into what you say about that?
Okay, this is like my philosophy.
He's so happy
on life.
right now.
I love
Yeah,
this.
go ahead.
Is that I have a big like internal monologue about like a really crazy idea that you're like, this shouldn't be like real in your brain, but it is. That in my mind, if you don't have a recording of it, it didn't happen. That's how I feel. And so that's why I'm so into videography, because the more that you have something you can point to, like you mentioned, if you have an episode that's kind of a primer for you to get into real estate, get into mortgages, get into franchising, get into lawyer law, stuff like that, then it's easier for you to look back at it, use it as a reference, have it forever. But also for us, that we have something that I feel like we're going to be relatively proud about, that we can point to it and show our friends and be like, yeah, we did an episode about this. If you want to give it a look, go for it. And it builds that catalog of stuff that you've not only done in your life. So yeah, record cool stuff that you do and post it online and let people enjoy it. But also for you, when you get older and when you're, like you mentioned, going through different stages of your life, you're not thinking, oh, what did we talk about then? Oh, what was that about? Oh, what did I do then? You can literally just bring it up. You can look it up very quickly and have that there for you. So we are trying to build a database of a lot of this information that you can look at any stage of your life, and at any time that you want to look it back up and try to think back to any of the interesting things that you saw.
I love that. And now I'm just going to interview you for a moment because I also want to talk about, I know about being a woman and being a woman in finance and helping women get better at finance. You know a lot about the market research that is getting a financial podcast out there. Something I'm really proud of is, again, that access with free information. The podcast is free for you to look up. You can replay it as many times as you want. But there's a lot of free information out there. So what are we doing? Walk through a little bit what we're doing to make sure we've got reliable content, and what are we doing differently than some of the other financial YouTubers and Spotifyers that you've seen out there?
Sure. The main thing is that when it comes to a lot of this financial space, like I had mentioned before, a lot of people do repeat the same kind of stuff, and we will. There's a lot of stories and statistics that it's worth you knowing, so we'll repeat them often. But when it comes to the different stuff that we've done so far alone, is going into a lot of different topics that, like you talk about lots of lawyers. Yeah.
Yes. It's called lolling. Lots of lawyers. You got to have them.
Exactly.
I know. That's the only way I got through it in my office. I would just close my door to my pink office and I was like, I got to loll.
Sure.
And that's the only way you can get through it. Yeah.
But genuinely, that when you get into certain situations, it's useful to know who you should talk to. And it's easy for us to be like, to literally sit here and stare at the camera and be like, when you're in this situation, you should talk to this lawyer. But the more that we've talked to people, the better I think some of the anecdotes they bring out are to help solidify some things in your mind, but also for them to just kind of give very blatant like tips that they have. You've asked so many of the guests just like blatantly like, what do you think is the best place to start? And they're like, this is it. To get the same kind of information, you would need to schedule a meeting, go in, sit down, and spend an hour. Yeah, exactly. And talk to a lawyer about this or that. And of course, there are other YouTube channels that do stuff that are specific to finance, specific to law, specific to a mortgage. But I think that this is a really good place to start on general knowledge about where you could get certain information. If we're thinking of our professional adult lives as like a point, and then we spread out the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon of everyone else in the world, this is a good place for you to start that network and think of the types of people in your if you don't live in the area we are, your local area that you should be reaching out to and thinking about. One that was really impacted me, and you'll see the episode, was about estate planning and just how much it's not okay, well, I'm 90 on my deathbed, I should be thinking about it. And how much, as soon as you reach out to somebody that knows these things, they'll point you in the right direction and get you set very quickly in case of an emergency, in case of something sudden. And it might not just be for you. It could be for a family member. And so much of that information you just don't think about on the day-to-day. And it was I'm really excited to edit that episode.
That was a really good one. Yeah. They've all been good. But I think the other thing too, in terms of that, is I've had clients before that see things online And I asked them, like, send me the content that you looked at.
Yeah.
So if you're not local and it's not something where you can hire the realtor that we had on, or you have an attorneys are a good example because it's state by state.
Exactly.
You can we'll have short YouTube shorts, we'll have the full episode. Send them to the experts that you're looking to work with, and then they'll be able to know, because a lot of times if I'm talking with a client, they're not an expert on it, right? So they're paraphrasing and I'm not sure what exactly they're saying. And then I can take a look at a quick clip and I can go, oh, we're talking about this. Now I understand. The content's free and it's easy to share. So yeah, just taking a look at building out your team. And truly, you mentioned this earlier, and I think it's worth repeating. A lot of people don't even know who needs to be on their team.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So just by watching, if you sit down to watch one of these or you listen to it, if you in the first 3 seconds figure out what the name of the professional you may need is, like the type of professional, and you learn like 3 buzzwords, you're golden. If you understand more than that, that's awesome. But the other thing too is just making sure that you're picking people who have a team like that, because it makes it easier. I've had clients that are like, no, I'm going to find the cheapest person for each of these different things. And it's like a bunch of different companies that all can't talk to each other, right?
Oh, no.
And don't know each other.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't ever flow as well.
Yeah.
And it turns into sometimes like a you get what you pay for kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And there are things, I always say no more WebMD finance. And what I mean by that is if I have a cough, I might Google it. If I think I have cancer, I'm going to go to a doctor.
Fair.
Use your experts for these different areas because they are important, and it can cost you a lot of money. If you're like, I'm just going to Google it myself and figure it out for this, or I'm going to Google mortgage rates, I'm going to Google all these different things. It's like Zillow doesn't know everything. I promise.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So just being mindful of that. And I wanted to share a story too that's in that same vein that changed my life. So I had a client. Well, they weren't a client at the time. I was in my office eating Chinese food with my team.
Okay, I'm building the picture.
I know.
Yes.
It wasn't Chili's, but it was close.
Yeah. On the plush pink. Yes, no, I have it all in my head.
Yes, this was the dark ages when everything was navy.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, it
Well,
was
now I have
tough.
a dour picture in my head.
I know it's been a long time. So there I was, because this was earlier in my career, and it shaped a lot of not only how I run my office, but how I run my personal life. So there we were eating Chinese food, me and my team, and we get a call from a guy who's like, hey, I know what you guys do. I want you to manage my money. I'm going to swing by real quick and drop off a statement. We're like, all right, well, we're eating Chinese food, but we'll close the door to the conference room and come out. So we come out and the statement is for well over $1 million.
Wow.
And he's like, okay, so just draft the paperwork and we'll get going. I'm like, do you want to have a meeting? I'll throw away the Chinese food. Like, I'll do whatever. He goes, no, not right now. And I go, oh, he goes, you were referred by a really good friend of mine. He goes, and I'm really good at what I do. And he says, you're really good at what you do. So what I do is I build out a team of experts so I can focus on what I'm already really good at. And the only thing I need to know for everybody that I select is how to select them, how to monitor them, and how to replace them if I need to.
That's rad.
And he walked out of my office.
Awesome. I love that.
And
so
I was
much.
like, whoa, because I was trying to be a jack of all trades, master of none. That's the reason why that expression is real, right? And this guy was just like, I am phenomenal at what I do. And I'll find people who are phenomenal at what they do. I'll give you a shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he's still a client. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And that's just good business. When you do good business, you bring in people and they're just, they trust you, right? And that's what I think when you're finding all of these people that we end up interviewing and talking about, they're not all scary. It's not, when you think of the word lawyer, you think of someone that's like, scary and very serious and stuff like that. But so many of the people we've talked to are just like regular people. And the advice that we've gotten, I think with every single person is like, we're not the boogeyman. You can come and have a regular conversation with us. And so many of them go on to be like a big part of their clients' lives and like their interpersonal stuff of like, yeah, I can help you with this. Or like, hey, let's talk about the big game or something like that. And it builds out your network, not in that serious way of like, I need to make sure that I'm getting my client the best value and blah, blah, blah. It's more of like, yeah, we're all peers and we can all work together on things and I can help you and you can help me. And like you mentioned, like I'm very focused on what I do. I'm not going to look up all of the state law about this or that. I trust you to do that. And once you build those relationships, it really you feel more comfortable, I'd say. You feel like you can breathe and be like, if something happens, I at the very, very, very least have someone I can call and can point me in the right direction. And that is so invaluable, I found, because having a crisis come up and you just sit there and stew and you're like, what is going to happen is just so infuriating that once you have a direction to go, it's liberating. It's awesome.
And I think to build on that, a lot of the stuff people do just bottle up. They're just like, I am just a giant ball of anxiety. Exactly. And there's so much embarrassment around it, which we touched on earlier. And there doesn't need to be. Like, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And ask the people that will know the right answer. And it's not Google. It's not ChatGPT. It's not.
It's not ChatGPT.
It's not ChatGPT. I was looking up stuff for the episode and I was thinking, I'm like, because sometimes in Google, I don't know if you do this, but I just write like what I'm thinking into Google.
No, that's smart actually sometimes, yeah.
Right, and I just see what pops up. I'm like, I'm not going to formulate this. I'm just going to throw it in there. So I went on ChatGPT and I just wrote, do women get ripped off?
That's interesting.
Started giving me all these statistics. Yeah. So I come in to do this episode. I'm like, Keon, you'll never believe what I put in ChatGPT. He's like, that's awesome. Can we please cite every single thing? And turns out some of the stuff was different.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how much people use these large language models, which will probably in the near future be incredibly useful and incredibly ironclad. That's not today. That's not right now. Look at the date of this episode. That's not right now.
So everything that we have said has a credible source cited to it. But yeah, just making sure that, Google's great. It's great we have access to so much information. Yeah. But you do want to have experts a lot of times. So like the securities world, the investment world is not state by state. Things like law are state by state. Things like real estate can be even way more specific. You don't just want, we're in Florida. You don't just want like a realtor in Florida. You want a realtor sometimes specific to the city that you live in.
Yeah.
So we try to touch on that with the experts we have on the show too. And a really good expert won't tell you like, well, I'm a realtor in Tampa, but I'll show you properties in Miami. They'll say, go with an expert that's in Miami, right? Yeah. So making sure that the people that we're talking to, while a lot of them are local to here, making sure that it translates for those of you who are watching who don't live in sunny Safety Harbor, Florida.
Yeah. And to that point, certain lawyers and certain other people in other professions, they usually end up at the courthouse often. And you know who else is at the courthouse often? The judges and other people that are also doing law that will also all be communicating at some point. So it does pay to know the type of people that will be able to point you in the right direction of like, no, this is the person you need to talk to. This is literally the person at the courthouse you should go communicate with and we'll get you a permit or we'll do this or that. There's more to it than just someone that can regurgitate, knowledge to you. There's a lot of interesting elements of like, no, this is actually kind of like the interpersonal way that our courthouse works. And it's really interesting. And it's fun. It's fun to learn those things. And especially for us, this isn't just all going to be serious stuff. We're going to look up some TikToks. We're going to have a good time. It's not just going to be us trying to give you all of that knowledge and regurgitate out a bunch of text on a screen. We're going to try to make this as fun and as interesting for you to be able to remember what we're talking about, but also kind of think about, oh my God, that's interesting and crazy that we might react to a TikTok that's kind of silly and clarify it a bit better. Or something that's really poignant that we want to bring up and make sure that you guys are aware of. So there's a lot of stuff we want to do with the channel and do with our time and do with the guests and stuff like that. But on the whole, this kind of information is invaluable because you don't learn it
anywhere.
In school. It makes me so mad. I keep coming back to that. But genuinely, there is just such a wealth of knowledge that we have around us that it would feel criminal not to share with you,
Yeah. And I want to add to that when you talked about like knowing people at the courthouse and all these different things, whenever you have systemic issues, and some people shy away from that word, I don't. I think that when we talk about some gender inequalities that are there, it's like, where does it start? When the children's toys are 7% more expensive, where did it start really? I don't know, right? And I think what's really important is that in your example, where like having those synergies, right? Where you've got your professionals that know each other. You can't put a dollar amount on that.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, when we see these statistics, it does come out in the wash where it ends up translating into it costing more money.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So having those synergies is super important when you're building out all the people that you work with throughout the course of your life.
And you know who has more power over you than you think? Your local government. It's good to know. It's good to know these people. And it's good to just get a good network of people out there that are also doing really interesting stuff. It might not be in the same field that you're in, but they're also really nice and cool people, as you'll see in the other episodes. They're awesome. We've had such a great time making these episodes.
They've been super cool. They've been super cool so far. And I'm excited to see where it goes.
Me too.
I think it'll be great. So I think that's our episode, man. Yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on this channel.
You can find me here.
Yes, you can find me right here on this channel.
Dan's chained to the editing chair.
But I also have a channel called FrameForge. That one's more about videography, but also about storytelling, those kinds of elements, about how I do all this kind of stuff. But generally, I mean, when it comes to finance, I am very excited that we're starting here, and I'm starting with you doing financial content like this, because I think it is so important to have it. And that, yeah, if you want to find me, I'll be right here. Don't worry.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
For our intro episode. And thank you all for watching. Come on this journey with us, and remember that your wealth suits you better when it's tailored.
Yeah.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through MFP Financial Services LLC, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Keon Buzar-Jamiri and his company are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or MFP Financial Services LLC.